He didn't leave me suddenly. He just started showing up less until one day he didn't show up at all. Sometimes the person you miss the most is still alive, just not in your life. Hello, my name is Olivia Hart. I'm 24 years old and I live in Austin, Texas. I want to tell you about my journey. Not just about growing up, but about the pain of growing apart from someone I never thought I'd lose. This is the story of how I miss my dad, and how I've had to learn how to live with that pain alone. My earliest memories are filled with his voice. Not the words exactly, but the tone, deep, warm, and always calm even when I broke something or asked too many questions. When I was 4, I got a terrible cold one winter night. I remember coughing so hard my chest ached, and my mom had passed out on the couch after a long shift. My dad stayed up with me until morning, reading me picture books, rubbing my back, and wiping my nose with those soft tissues that only he remembered to buy. He was that kind of dad. We weren't rich. My mom worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and my dad ran a small handyman service. He could fix anything: leaky faucets, broken cabinet doors, loose steps on the porch. But the thing he really fixed was us. He made our home feel safe, warm, whole. Every Saturday morning, he and I had our ritual. We'd wake up early, 6:30 sharp, and head to the downtown farmers market. It wasn't fancy, just local vendors selling fresh eggs, jars of honey, homemade candles. But it felt like magic to me. He'd buy me hot chocolate, always with whipped cream, and we'd sit on a worn-out wooden bench near the live music stage. He'd ask me about my week's school friends, books I was reading, and actually listen. Not the fake kind of listening, the nod and smile thing adults sometimes do. He cared. I remember one particular Saturday, I must have been 7 or 8. I told him I wanted to become a vet when I grew up. Without hesitation, he said, "Then we'll make sure you're the best one in Texas." He didn't laugh or brush it off. That moment stuck with me. It felt like a promise, like no matter what I wanted, he'd be there cheering me on. For most of my childhood, he was the loudest cheerleader I had. He showed up to every soccer game, even the away matches in the freezing rain. He made signs with my name and glued glitter that never quite stayed on the poster board. He'd yell my name so loud I used to get embarrassed, but secretly I loved it. I'd look over at the bleachers just to see his proud grin. My mom used to smile more back then. I'd catch her laughing at his silly jokes in the kitchen while he cooked spaghetti. They slow danced in our tiny living room sometimes. No music playing, just their own rhythm. I thought that's what love looked like. I thought that's what forever looked like. But then things changed. Not all at once. It was slow, like a faucet dripping in the middle of the night. So quiet you don't notice until the sink starts to overflow. I think it started when I was around 11. Dad began working longer hours. He took more out-of-town jobs, things that paid more but kept him away. When he came home, he seemed tired. Not just physically, emotionally. He smiled less, sighed more. Mom would ask him something, anything really, and he'd snap. Not mean but sharp. Uninterested. Like he was always somewhere else. They stopped dancing in the living room. And our Saturday morning ritual started fading. First it was 1 week miss, then 2. He'd say he had a job or he was too tired or maybe next time. But next time rarely came. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself he was busy. Adults had stuff to do. But deep down I felt it, that invisible space growing between us. Then came the fights. They were always behind closed doors, but I could still hear them. muffled arguments that drifted through the hallway walls late at night. Money, responsibilities, resentments. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough to know something was breaking. One night I woke up to yelling, louder than usual. I peeked down the hallway and saw my dad holding a small duffel bag, his face flushed and my mom crying. He looked at me just for a second, then walked out the front door. That was the night everything changed. He was gone for 3 days, then a week, then 2. I kept waiting for him to come back like nothing had happened. I thought maybe he'd knock on the door, apologize, bring hot chocolate like he used to. But instead we got a phone call. He was moving into a small apartment on the east side. Just for a little while, he said. Until things calmed down. It didn't feel temporary. After that, our time together became scheduled, court-mandated weekend visits every other holiday. I'd pack a bag and sleep on his pull-out couch, try to make the best of it. He tried to, but it was different. He wasn't goofy or playful like before. He was quiet, like someone who was walking through life with a weight on his shoulders. The hardest part wasn't the divorce. It was that he never explained anything. I never got to ask why he left, why he didn't fight to stay, why he let our Saturday mornings go. I just swallowed it like kids do. I learned to smile when I saw him and say, "It's okay," when it wasn't. Middle school came and went. Then high school. He showed up for some stuff, parent-teacher conferences, a few games, but not all. I started expecting less and less. I stopped telling him about my crushes, or my school projects, or the novels I was writing in secret. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure he'd care. We became strangers who knew each other's birthdays. I remember my high school graduation vividly. I was valedictorian. I gave a speech about strength and resilience and everyone clapped. When the ceremony ended, I searched the crowd for him. I saw my mom, my grandma, few friends, but not him. I later found out he had a plumbing job that ran late. "Sorry, kiddo," he texted me that night. "I'm proud of you." It hurt more than I thought it would. College was a fresh start. I moved to Austin for school, studied communications, made friends, fell in love for the first time, got my heart broken. All without him. He called sometimes. Short conversations. Small talk. Never too deep. Sometimes I wondered if he thought about me the way I thought about him during big life moments, or even just when hearing a certain song on the radio. But I never asked. And he never said. I wanted to be angry. Really angry. But I wasn't. I was just sad. He didn't leave in some big dramatic way. He just started showing up less and less until one day it felt like he didn't show up at all. Even now there are days when I catch myself standing in the grocery store, staring at jars of honey or packets of hot cocoa, and suddenly I'm back on that wooden bench at the farmer's market, a little girl holding her dad's hand, thinking everything would always be okay. But it wasn't. And it isn't. And yet, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many times I tell myself I've moved on, I still miss him. Not the man he became. Not the man who texts every couple of months with a dry, "Hope you're good." Not the man who forgets my birthday unless Facebook reminds him. I miss the version of him that lived in our small 3-bedroom house, who danced in the kitchen with my mom, who made the best grilled cheese and always cut it into triangles because he said it tasted better that way. I miss that man, the one who used to be my whole world. And the strangest part? He's not dead. He's still here. He's just not my dad anymore. At least not the way I remember. It's hard to explain what it feels like to miss someone who's still breathing, who's still walking around and living a life that used to include you, and now doesn't. It's a specific kind of ache, a quiet grief that never really ends. It's the kind of loss that doesn't come with funerals or flowers or sympathy cards. Just silence. And the worst part? No one really talks about it. When people ask me about my parents, I say, yeah, my mom's great. She lives in Fort Worth now. And my dad's around. That's it. I downplay it. I make it casual. Because saying, I haven't had a real conversation with my dad in 6 years, feels too heavy, too raw, too real. But it is real. There's this memory I keep going back to. I was 19. It was Christmas Eve, and I decided to surprise him. I drove across town with a small gift. A framed photo of us from one of those farmers market mornings. I hadn't seen him in months, but something inside me said, go. Try again. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought he'd open the door, hug me tight, apologize for everything, and we'd magically go back to how it was. He did open the door, wearing an old hoodie, holding a beer, and looked surprised like I was some stranger selling Girl Scout cookies. Olivia, he said. Hey, I smiled, holding out the wrapped frame. Merry Christmas. He took it with a hesitant smile, nodded awkwardly, and said thanks. But he didn't invite me in. There was a woman's voice in the background. I think her name was Marcy or Macy or something. I saw a kid's toy truck near the couch. That's when it hit me, he had a new life. A whole new life. One I wasn't a part of. I got back in my car, parked in a cold, quiet street, and cried. The kind of crying where your chest hurts and you try to breathe, but it feels like there's not enough air in the world. That was the last time I tried to surprise him. From that moment on, I stopped trying to rebuild something he had already replaced. That's what missing someone who's still alive feels like. It's not about death. It's about the living absence, the choosing not to be there. And that choice cuts deeper than any goodbye ever could. Sometimes I wonder what I'd say if we sat down today face to face. No distractions. No polite small talk. Just truth. Maybe I'd ask him why he didn't fight harder to stay in my life. Why he didn't call when I made Dean's List. Why he didn't show up when I needed him the most, when I had a panic attack in my dorm sophomore year, when I broke up with my first serious boyfriend, when I didn't know how to file my taxes. All those dad moments where I reached for my phone, stared at his name in my contacts, and decided not to call, because I didn't want to hear the emptiness in his voice. And yet, part of me still wants to believe he misses me too. That he thinks about those Saturdays. That he sometimes walks by a farmer's market, smells fresh waffles, and feels that ache in his chest. I hope he does. God, I hope he does. But hope's a funny thing. It keeps you going and breaks your heart all at once. A few months ago, I was scrolling through old photos on my laptop. There's one I always come back to. It's me around 6 years old, sitting on my dad's shoulders, holding a balloon that says, "Best day ever." My cheeks are smeared with chocolate ice cream and he's laughing. Not smiling, but actually laughing like the world couldn't touch us. I stared at that photo for a long time. I wanted to reach into it and tell that little girl, hold on to this. Memorize every second. Because one day this man won't feel like your dad anymore. But I couldn't. And she wouldn't have understood anyway. I've tried filling that hole in different ways. I had this one professor in college, Mr. Raymond. He was older, in his 60s, gruff voice but kind. He used to stay after class to talk with students, ask about our lives, our goals. One day I stayed behind and opened up about my dad. Not the whole story, just fragments. He listened. Really listened. Then he said, "Some people stop showing up because they don't know how to keep loving when life gets hard. That's not your fault. And it doesn't mean you're unlovable." I cried in his office that day. Not because of the words, but because I hadn't heard something that kind from a man in years. Since then, I've built a little family of my own. Not by blood, but by choice. My roommate Kara, who makes pancakes when I'm sad. My friend Nate, who always picks up my calls no matter what time. My coworker Jamie, who once drove an hour just to help me jumpstart my car in the middle of the night. They don't replace him. No one can. But they fill the silence he left behind. Every now and then I see a dad and daughter at a coffee shop, sharing a table, laughing over lattes. And it hits me all over again. Not the memory, the absence. It's like an echo. You don't hear the voice anymore. You just feel what's missing. People tell you time heals everything. That's a lie. Time doesn't heal. It teaches you to carry things, to live with unanswered questions, to smile while a part of you quietly grieves every day. I thought about reaching out again, writing a letter, sending an email, something. But what would I even say? "Hi, Dad. I miss the version of you who used to be my hero. Do you ever miss me too?" I don't know if I'm ready to hear the answer. Or worse, not get one at all. Sometimes missing someone isn't about what happened. It's about what never happened. The birthday dinners that never came. The voicemails that were never left. The empty chairs at important moments. I wish he'd just said, "I don't know how to be your dad anymore." At least that would have been honest. At least it would have acknowledged the gap between us. But instead it was silence. And that silence speaks louder than anything. Now, as an adult, I've learned to carry both truths at once. He loved me once. He left me anyway. And maybe, just maybe, both can be true. I think the hardest part of healing is letting go of the version of someone you created in your mind. The one who never made mistakes. The one who would never hurt you. But people are just people. Flawed. Messy. Human. My dad's no monster. He didn't vanish out of cruelty. He just faded. Like old photographs. Like childhood dreams. Like Saturday mornings that used to smell like cinnamon and cocoa. And so I wake up now in my small Austin apartment and I make my own cocoa. I sit by my window. I journal. I remember. I try to forgive. Not just him, but myself for still missing someone who doesn't miss me back. And maybe someday if he ever calls or shows up or writes me a letter, I'll be ready to answer. Maybe. But until then, I carry both the joy and the grief. I carry him, the hero he once was and the man he became. Because missing someone who's still alive isn't about forgetting them. It's about remembering without losing yourself. Thank you for listening to Olivia's story. If her journey touched your heart, if you've ever missed someone who was once everything to you, we'd love to hear your story too. Glowing Star, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to English Stories Box, where real stories find a voice and every emotion matters. We'll see you in the next story.